Hello and welcome to the Fire Chief's video message for May 2021. Back with me this month is Pete. Welcome.
Chief.
We had Jay here last month. He sat in the chair, he did a good job, and welcome back.
Yes, thank you, Chief.
So it's May. We're rolling through the 13 to now 14 months in the pandemic, and just before we taped this video, we ended Blue Alert. Talk about Blue Alert for a second.
Yeah, of course, it's hard to imagine where we were just a year ago and everything we've been through. And then, of course, in January of 2021, we initiated, or EMS initiated, the Blue Alert, which allowed the supervisors to manage some things there. So that has been going well, I think, and been very helpful, but it's time to bring it to an end.
Right, so as we did with the first surge, the surge that came up right after the holidays, and roughly 4 months now, we have been on Blue Alert 24 hours a day, in which we've been utilizing that EMS 700 disposition officer at ECC or on the radio through Alpha 12 now, where he or she is providing validation of and direction to which transport destination. So it's been very effective. We set triggers, the EMS folks had set triggers as to when we would be demobbing that. And one of those triggers was multiple days with ICU admissions below a set bar, consecutive multiple days. We got to that point, and we've been forecasting that this would come, and we're now here. So the other morning at 0700, Blue Alert ended. We're back to operating with protocol and picking the appropriate destination as the provider does on the unit, naturally using chats or threads to talk about the hospital status. But it was very effective at the time to outline that somebody could get because of hospital volume, that potentially a longer drive to a further facility would in turn provide that patient quicker turnaround service and quicker service. So great amount of thanks to all the duty officers that were connected on 7 Alpha 12, providing that answer, as well as to all the field providers for their patients, as well as their ability to get that right care at the right time.
And I think there was a little side benefit through all this too, as far as the telehealth initiative and the alternative transport destination. That was all in the mix here, and I think that the EMS 700 helped manage that situation as well. So it was all a pretty good situation.
Absolutely. The ET3 component of telehealth and the alternative destination expansion rolled out on January 1, and that was right at the same time. So you're absolutely right. They were on the radio confirming and providing that validation to the ambulance, hey, would this patient be appropriate for telehealth or appropriate for one of those alternative facilities? So thank you to all the EMS duty officers, the folks in EMI, HS, and to, again, everybody out on the field. We are working to make internal station mitigation changes as the county has metrics for reopening and the return to a post-COVID battle rhythm. We are preparing to make some changes on that, so those are coming out soon. We'll be talking about station visits, apparatus staffing levels. As you've heard me say before, the face covers are going to be with us in some form for probably ever, particularly on EMS incidents, as the gloves were back in the 80s. Face covers, surgical masks will be likely with us, in the core PPE for the long period. But intra-station, we will see face covers, something of that nature with us for a good period of time. Don't know if it's going to end up in summer or just after summer, but we'll be working with the folks in public health. But changes on the horizon there.
Well, you mentioned the metric, of course, nationally and within the state. There's been some positive changes, but certainly I think on a personal level, there were most of us noticed that our kids didn't get flu, and a lot of good practice that we've learned through this COVID and pandemic. Washing hands, social distancing, and the mask. So I think you're absolutely right that we'll, probably some of these practices will be with us for a while.
And we are definitely having challenges as we are working through the beginning of summer and staffing, as people are still off, people are still unavailable to work. The folks out there every day still inoculating. Before we started taping, we were discussing that the 12 to 15-year-old group is just about ready to be decided how that's going to go, and that could be another great community participation at point as potentially public health rolls out that vaccination. So that'll be another big group of the community that'll soon be able to receive the vaccine. So definitely kudos to all who have been helping in the vaccine process, and the effort has definitely made a difference and has been impactful and observed by the community, the residents, and the members of the county.
Certainly a great community engagement there, that's for sure.
Yep. So usually when it's the November, December timeframe, we start talking about some uptick in fires. We run a house fire, structure fire on one a day on average. We've been running that, pretty consistent now, and in the last couple of days, we've had some significant ones. I want to jump back to, it's rare that we have two concurrent house fires adjacent to each other. So tell me about Radley Preserve.
Yeah, that was in Potomac. We've had a number of storms, intense storms roll through here. That was in the beginning of April, but about a month ago maybe, where we had a fairly significant lightning strikes, two houses right next to each other, as you mentioned. And as we responded to one, we were made aware of another. So a lot of resources involved there, but pretty significant damage and a lot of work by those folks. And again, very weather advisories and significant weather had been rolling through, as it has been a number of times.
And when we say right next to each other, numerically they weren't, physically because of a long driveway setback configuration, they were very much adjacent. And absolutely, ECC was getting phone calls for House A. Crews arrived to see House B with smoke and conditions evident. Resident from House A says, "Hey, my house is on fire over there," and crew's like, "Yeah, it is." And so two houses next to each other, both with lightning strike is the reason for the fire, but great work done by those folks. Then we had Needwood Road, an apartment fire. Talk to us about what occurred there and the very unique nature there.
Yeah, that was a middle of a day fire and unoccupied apartment. No humans were in the apartment. We had significant fire. A police officer was in the area. He discovered it, checked on the folks, and when we arrived, had some pretty significant smoke and fire in an apartment. And in fact, firefighters rescued or moved
adjacent apartment off a ladder.
Down the ladder. Everything's fine there, but they did retrieve and rescue several pets. They worked them for quite a while, and everybody in the community was watching that effort. First it starts with 2 or 3 personnel, and then eventually, maybe as many as a dozen were involved in that rescue effort. So pretty significant, very, very recognizable by the community. They were able to resuscitate one of the small dogs, and unfortunately, after they transported to the vet, the dog seemed to be improving a little bit, but took a turn and then succumbed to its injuries. But nonetheless, and I think you want to mention the fact that the family.
Yeah, so the family was extremely appreciative of the efforts, as caring for their little babies was the act and the compassion provided by the crews. It was like a combination of folks from 8, 32, and Company 15 that began that patient care on these animals. Great work, as well as a video call to a vet to get some guidance and counsel. Then, as you said, transport to a facility, and Guapo, the dog that was revived and did survive for that period of time, was a great success. Sadly, ultimately having some complications in the medical circumstances. That family came back. We're at 32 doing our taping. They came back to 32 to visit and say thank you to the crew members, and it's a great opportunity for the family and the crew to connect, and great work to all involved for that compassion and dedication to both the four-legged family members, the two-legged family members, the property, as we talk about protect lives and property. So great work out in Needwood.
Yeah, for sure. And, they were very appreciative and couldn't believe that we would go to that effort. So yes, kudos to that crew.
And didn't get much component just before that, but we rescued a raccoon right before that. So, you know, Animal Services was in trouble, shall we say, trying to get a raccoon off the, fourth floor of an apartment building?
It was an electrical conduit up about 4 stories and down at Silver Spring. And, you know, who are you going to call? You know,
Tower 19.
Yep.
And they handed us the net, and up they went and helped, you said Rocky the raccoon, you know, get back down and be able to be reunited.
You know, I sure hope it's not the raccoon they're looking for in Rockville that apparently is rabid, but that's in a whole nother story.
But then Peachtree was just the other night, right about midnight, you know, barn fire, Peachtree Road, non-hydrant area. I think the number was 250,000 square feet of barn space. I mean, these were 3 barns, very adjacent to each other, very close, and all 3, you know, well involved with fire.
Yeah, I guess you could say there's a few less barns in Barnesville, but that being said, it was around midnight, a little before midnight, the homeowner had discovered the fire. By the time we got there, which, you know, was within a reasonable time, pretty significant fire, heavy fire conditions. Of course, it's a non-hydrant area. It seemed like things went pretty well as far as water. In fact, they had the bulk of the fire knocked down, which is a very significant fire. And as you mentioned, 3 structures. They had a lot going on, fuel tanks they had to protect, the house they had nearby, they had some exposures. So they did a great job. But for the most part, they had it knocked down in about a half hour or so. Of course, we were there for
about 12
or 14 hours,
right. So, I mean,
hitting the hot spots.
It was all equipment and farm supplies in these barns, no animals, so no injuries by fire personnel, no injuries or losses to the livestock. Clearly, large structures like that on an agricultural property are a big part of that, you know, facility. Looks like you said about $2 million loss there. Great work by the folks involved as water on wheels or rural water operations are trouble. That homeowner's original video that you got really paints the picture as to those conditions, you know, present when you know, before Company 14 arrived. So yeah. Great work by the C Shift folks, followed on by the A Shift folks in the 5th Battalion and surrounding areas.
And just, you know, but and others that work up there, that these hay bales, these rounds of hay, are very compacted, and it was very labor intensive for the next day, you know, pulling that all apart and you know, getting that out and containing that. So you know, that was burning, and as you mentioned, lots of other equipment and materials also were in those barns. So
yep.
Significant effort. No injuries.
We're finalizing May, so we don't have a final update or disposition on the budget yet, but that's soon to be out. We're looking at adding that chase car and a daytime EMS unit, BLS, daytime BLS unit. So location on that will be determined after the council makes their final operating budget decisions. But hopefully that is resolved, and we get those started on roughly July the 4th. I think that's the Sunday, but that'll add some much needed capacity to the EMS components.
Yeah, good work to you and your staff, and you know, working with the council and the executive and getting all that together. Certainly, obviously, you've proven and justified the need for that. Thanks
very much for joining me. As we talked about, COVID is progressing, changing into the next phase. We've been talking about how it will be, what things happen as county reopens and the community reopens, as school wraps up this calendar year and prepares for the next calendar year, what that means for our kids and our community. So a lot of change, much appreciation to everybody for being flexible as the organization has had to flex and change throughout the pandemic, and to each and everybody. So as we wrap up May, the weather is definitely getting nicer. We did have a good heat wave there a couple of days where it was up in the good 80s. We're back into reasonable May weather right now, but enjoy the good weather before it gets to be the hazy, hot, and humid times of summer here in the Mid-Atlantic. Get out there, look at your properties, do your familiarization like Jay and I talked about last month. You know, look at those special target hazards and be ready for that call, so that when you do get it at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 5 p.m., you've walked through it, you've looked at it, you've had that planning opportunity. So until next month, take care, be safe.